Hello, my name is Christy Hodges, and this is my last and final video for OCD Awareness Week, and I am really cutting it short because we really are almost done with Sunday, which would pretty much be the last opportunity to do a video. I saved the best for last. Today I'm going to talk about something that you'll often hear me talking about, which is the Groinal Syndrome, which is it's a symptom of having OCD, and it's part of compulsions, and it's seriously embarrassing. Most of the people that have it feel as if the fact that they have this one symptom means that they really don't have OCD, and whatever that they're feeling is real. So it's important to talk about this. It's important to get it out there so people know that if they do have this symptom, that doesn't mean that they're any different than anyone else and that treatment can't help. So I have a couple questions written down here that I'm going to go off of, and then we'll talk about treatment. What is it? So the Groinal Syndrome is kind of what it sounds like. It has to do with your groin, so it's super embarrassing and it's super miserable. So what it is movement in the groin that is manifested because you are checking and rechecking to see if something is going on down there. Now, why would you do that? If you're here and you don't have OCD, you're going, what in the world is this? Well, I'll tell you. Sexual intrusive thoughts, if you've seen my videos that I've done most of this week, sexual intrusive thoughts are unwanted thoughts that people get of a sexual nature, violent nature at times as well. And what happens is that you do many compulsions to try to feel better about having these yes, cat, I am home. The banana, yeah. And I hope you're doing well, by the way. So it is, we do many compulsions to deal with these unwanted, horrific thoughts that we don't want. Sexual intrusive thoughts are things that you would think about that you go, why did I just think that? But there must be a reason. And so you go down that path of what is it about me that made me think this? Is it my character? Versus everybody has intrusive thoughts that they don't want, but those of us with OCD dwell on them. So this is a compulsion that people experience that they are super ashamed about. What happens is this. I'll tell you how it happened for me. When I developed sexual intrusive thoughts when I was a teenager, I was terrified. I thought, what did I do wrong? And I had scrupulosity as well. So I believed that God was punishing me for something. And what happened is, even though I wasn't sexually active, because that was actually part of my scrupulosity, I was scared to do anything wrong, I still had attraction to men and, to things that made me feel excited, right? So when you think about what it feels like when you're aroused, when you're with someone or by yourself and you're becoming aroused, there are things that happen down in those areas, or any part of your body for that matter. So when your brain has OCD and is trying to convince you that you really don't have OCD and these sexual intrusive thoughts are real, your brain can manifest things to happen in your body that are actually going to try to convince you that, oh my gosh, something just moved down there. So maybe that means that these sexual intrusive thoughts are real, or I wouldn't have felt something. Easy examples to look for to compare to this. Well, number one, Seinfeld, when George gets the massage and he's like, I think it moved. And so, of course, if he's focusing on whether or not it moved, it's going to move. And you're going to feel stuff down there. And all of a sudden, he's like, I think it moved. And that must mean I'm gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Other things, maybe, and I've used this example many times, but it is the same. If you are worried about having health intrusive thoughts, so what if I have a brain tumor? What if I have stomach cancer? You may go on WebMD, biggest nightmare for people with OCD, by the way. You may go there. Shout out to Rudy. Woo! And I hope so. Groinal Girl t-shirts. We'll have to talk to Natalie for next year at the IOCDF conference. So if you have health OCD, you may go on WebMD, which is horrible. Don't go on there if you have OCD, but I know it's hard to resist. And then all of a sudden you start manifesting the symptoms of whatever health related theme you are worried about. I'm worried I have brain cancer. All of a sudden, oh my goodness, I'm getting a headache. You can actually manifest these things. So understanding that and knowing that, even people with OCD, this happens to you as well with thoughts and intrusive thoughts. So knowing that, this is no different. But the kicker is it feels different. Why? Because then you're analyzing what's going on down there. You're like, I know, but it even feels stronger than actual arousal. The way that I look at that is this. Of course it feels stronger because it is being fueled by anxiety. And anxiety adds so much gas to any fire. It's going to blaze. So when I get the groinal response, I always hesitate and go, it's part of my symptoms. I hate it. It's miserable, but it does accompany sexual intrusive thoughts. And I feel that it's there and I go, I automatically have this response of, oh my gosh, what if, and then I go, don't go down the rabbit hole. But I also think that was so much stronger than normal arousal. And then I recognize why? Because my anxiety, if I could bottle my anxiety up in some sort of bottle and then let it explode, I could actually probably fuel a rocket to Mars. It is that powerful. And this is sometimes something that we forget when we're in the moment, always looking for proof. So, hope you understand what that groinal means. Before I move on, the groinal is you have a sexual intrusive thought, even violent sometimes, and all of a sudden you feel something happen and you go, what is that? Does that mean? And then you start checking and rechecking. And the more you check and recheck, the worse it gets. Now, here's a good question. People will say, well, I feel like the groinal response is automatic. And so it happens actually before the thought. So that must mean it's real. Remember what I said before about sexual and violent intrusive thoughts. We're always looking for that 1% of proof or disproof. So this is a big one. People will analyze. But I'm walking down the street and I see someone walk by and they have a big rack, and I'm like, oh my God, I got the groinal response before I could even think about getting the groinal response. Does that mean I'm gay? Okay. In my experience and the way that I navigate this big fear of I am now conditioned to have this response, so it must mean it's not the groinal response. I'm really aroused. This is the way that I look at it. I have been having sexual intrusive thoughts since I was 14 years old. I am 40 now. This neuro pathway I have dug for sexual intrusive thoughts is so deep. I'm not even going to dive in there and try to figure out the intricacies of it. So I am programmed at any point to look at almost anything. And I've even said this before, even sometimes my dog's red rocket. And I'll be like, I just got the groinal, what does that mean? And if I go down if I go down and start to analyze, did I get it first or did the groinal happen next? I am screwed. Why? Because your brain, again, I've said this how many times this week, your brain will do anything to keep you stuck. So analyzing that is a dead end. And if you go down that path, you're going to be stuck in another cycle and it's just going to get worse. You have the groinal syndrome. Why? Because it's a symptom. The end. That's what I tell myself. It's a symptom. I'm stuck with it the rest of my life. This is not, if I want to try to fight it, fine, but it's going to win. So I have it. I go, okay, that's what this is. Maybe this is true. Maybe it's not. And I go down that path of I have to live with the uncertainty that my groin maybe just moved or maybe it didn't. And I'm not going to compare it to actual arousal. Third question. Why are you, Chrissy, always talking about people's groins? You may think to yourself, I'm so sick of this girl always talking about the Groinal Syndrome. I'm so sick of it. Do you know why I do? Because I'm an advocate. And advocates talk about things that no one else will. That's why we're advocates. We talk about things because these are the embarrassing things that keep people stuck. These are the things that people will experience for years, and it keeps them from getting therapy. So if any video that someone comes across of mine or any blog, and all of a sudden they see, oh my God, this girl said her groin moves and she's in recovery, then that means that I could be in recovery. So it's worth it to me to mention it all the time. This was single-handedly the symptom that kept me quiet. This is the one thing that said, if this physical manifestation is happening, then these sexual intrusive thoughts must be real. So that's why I did not say anything. That's why I did not ask for help. So if someone is out there suffering and they think, I've seen all this stuff on OCD, but I experience a physical manifestation, so that must mean I don't have OCD, I want them to know you are not alone. This is common. It sucks for everybody. We hate it. I don't know anybody that likes it. If you do, write me and tell me and then explain to me why. But this is why I talk about it all the time. I've even had people tell me sometimes, you may not want to talk about it because it just gets too personal. I don't care. Do you think I care if it gets too personal? I care about people getting the right help. I care about people knowing that their symptoms don't make them a freak. I care about people relating to someone who has exactly the same symptoms and can go, oh my gosh, if she got help, I can too. So that's why I'm always talking about it. So how can it manifest? Okay, this is going to be a little graphic. So if you don't want to hear it, turn it off or look away or mute or something. Groinal syndrome can manifest different for male and female. It can manifest in any way, shape, or form that sexual arousal can happen. So for women, typically and I can only speak from experience, typically that's going to be, I feel like I'm aroused. So you may feel like, am I wet down there? I may feel like something moved down there. Was that something that I feel good about? Typically, like I said before, anxiety makes you feel like everything's on fire. So while it may feel good, and in other circumstances for this, you're going, oh my God, what if it feels good? Oh my God, please don't let it feel good, right? So you may even feel like you could have an orgasm. In fact, some people will get the groinal syndrome and they will think, I just have to masturbate. I need to get through this and maybe it will make it go away. And this can become a compulsion. Masturbation can be a compulsion. What happens is that people will do this and then, like most compulsions, they'll feel okay because it's okay, it's gone now, but then it will come back. The anxiety and the intrusive thoughts, because compulsions don't last for very long. For males, and I just want you to know I'm not a male. I mean, I hope that you already know that, but so I can't speak for everything that you feel. I can only speak for things that I have worked with many people about, that they have told me this is the way the groinal response or the arousal response will happen. For many men, it will happen where they feel something in their groin area, or their penis might get erect, or they may feel something on their backside. So they may feel something in the area of thinking about if they're having homosexual intrusive thoughts, let's just say that and they think, well, what if I turn gay, or what if I'm gay? Then all of a sudden, if they think people who are gay will probably have anal sex, they may have a little tingling or something going on in their back end. So that way they're thinking, oh my gosh, does that mean it's arousal back there and that's what I want? Okay. They also may have mouth watering if they think about, what if I just thought about a blowjob? Does that mean I want to give a blowjob because my mouth is watering or my mouth is feeling tingly? For women, it could happen in regards to oral sex. I have never had that, but also women could have feelings in their breast area or anything that is sexual sensual, anything that you would be able to relate to sex. OCD has a mind of its own. It is going to go anywhere and everywhere to make you feel like something in your body is firing, and that must mean these sexual thoughts are true. So I know that was a little bit graphic, but here we go. I don't really care, because there are people out there that may say, well, I'm a male and something in my groin might move, but nobody's ever mentioned my backside having any sort of feelings. So that must mean that my sexual intrusive thoughts are real. Here's the thing. You don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to talk to anybody about this unless they are a professional that understands, unless they're a certified peer support specialist and they understand, unless you're part of a group or a support group of people with OCD and they get it. You don't have to tell anyone. But what you do need to know is that you're not alone. This is not a rare occurrence. This happens for many of us. And you're looking at someone right now who it happens to, and it is a symptom that really does at times really keep me stuck and make me question whether or not they're sexual intrusive thoughts or not. So you're not alone. Okay, so what do we do when it happens? First of all, you have got to get exposure response prevention therapy with a therapist who understands OCD. They are not going to flinch if you tell them that your butthole tingles or your vagina does. I mean, they're not. They're going to go, okay, well, this is pretty typical. So this is a symptom of OCD, yada, 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 yada. And then you don't have to feel upset. When I told Dr. Stephen Phillipson, I was so worried that he was going to look at me and go, oh, you get a feeling in your groin. That means you don't have OCD. But instead, he was like, oh, that's called the groinal response. And you probably feel X, Y, and Z. And let's move along together. And I flipped out and I was crying and I just couldn't believe it, that he believed me. Because this is the one thing that you don't believe yourself, that you have OCD, because you cannot believe it can manifest physically. But it does. So what I do when it happens, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for anyone else. This is what I do. And it happens, y'all, a lot. This is a symptom of mine. The same way I get sexual intrusive thoughts a lot. I get violent intrusive thoughts a lot. And I have all kinds of symptoms that go with it. So what do I do when I get the groinal syndrome? First of all, I recognize it. It takes me by surprise. So I'm going to be honest. I usually just go, oh, wow, okay. And it's that go-to neuro pathway over here where I question it. What does that mean? Then I realize, well, I don't really walk around even when I'm aroused with that kind of feeling, which is anxiety-fueled arousal. So I typically will go, okay, this seems like it's connected to a sexual intrusive thought. What is the thought? I usually identify what that thought is. So I'll just use the example I used before. Like one time my dog had a red rocket and I was like, oh my God, like, why am I looking at that? What does that mean? And like, I'm going to get all red. I'm going to match my shirt here in a minute. And so what I do is I recognize what the thought is and I say it out loud. Because anytime I don't say it out loud, it gives it fuel. I will say, I just had the groinal syndrome because I looked at my dog's red rocket. And when I say that, first of all, I can hear how irrational it sounds. Second of all, I say it out loud, so I don't give it any more fuel. So it isn't keeping something hidden like it's real. And third, I can start to look at it as, okay, it was a sexual intrusive thought. I'm having symptoms. So if that symptom actually happens, that means it's serious and I need to really look at it. So what will I do after that? I monitor what's going on for the next 24 hours. Am I looking at other things and getting the groinal response? Am I looking at women on the street and getting the groinal response? Am I looking at kids? Am I looking at old men? And no offense against old men. That's not what I mean. I mean, I think that old men are attractive and I'm going to go down this rabbit hole, but you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not technically going to be attracted to like 90-year-old men, but you know what I mean? Like you'll get the groinal response to anything. God, no offense to 90-year-old men. Now I'm going to worry and ruminate that I said that. And if you're 90, you're going to be like, what's wrong with me? Anyway, so I might get the groinal to things that I'm not technically and usually attracted to. So I start to monitor that. And if I see that it's happening over and over, I go, okay, maybe I'm at the beginning of a relapse. My OCD is kicking up. What do I need to do? I always go back to my ERP techniques, which for me is flooding, and I set a schedule for the next few days. And I say at 9 o'clock, at 12 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, I'm going to flood for 30 minutes. I'm going to flood these thoughts out. And typically I can get things settled within a few days. So whatever you do, usually in your ERP sessions, or if you haven't gotten therapy, this is a good time to start. If you are getting the arousal and the groinal syndrome and you don't know what to do because you haven't had ERP therapy, this is a great time to start. OCD is a chronic disorder. It does not get better on its own. You have got to get treatment. Evidence-based effective treatment is exposure response prevention. OCD specialists can do that. Make sure you vet them. Make sure they are practicing this most of the time and that they have success stories of people that have gone through ERP, and they can provide those success stories to you. There are other supplemental therapies, acceptance commitment therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, mindfulness, peer support can help. These are all supplemental. It has to be ERP. So how do I get help? Because if you're having the groinal syndrome and it is driving you mad, which it does drive us all mad, it is horrific, it's miserable, it's not going to go away on its own, and a lot of times it single-handedly keeps us stuck and it keeps us quiet because we're so scared to tell anybody, because to us that seems like proof, right? What can you do? Okay, there's a couple things. First, you want to look for OCD specialists in your area. If you can't find anyone or you just don't even want to take the time, contact me at treatmentforocd.com or christyhodges.com. This is what I do. I do consultations to help find and vet therapists in your area that do ERP, or therapists that can do Skype across state lines or across country lines that can help. Or you can visit the iocdf.org. They have a resource bank. Please vet the therapists. If you look in your area, please visit their website. Please make sure that they are an expert. There are a lot of people that claim they treat OCD and they don't. If you walk in and they say, you're going to sit down and we're going to talk about your childhood, you need to walk right out. If they say they don't do ERP therapy, they cannot help you. So that's how I can help you, and that's how you can start looking. ERP is a challenging therapy, but it works and it can help change your life. Now, with that said, before I close, just because you get therapy does not mean that this might go away. This is going to go away. For some people it might. For me, it didn't. This is a symptom of mine. I am 19 years into recovery. So at this point, I've had enough experience to recognize when I'm having the symptom and what to do. But it wasn't always like that. It's a scary symptom. It feels real. It feels so real. And so sometimes it really will trip you up, especially if you're in stress or you've had loss or change or something that's really triggering you. But with time, with proper treatment, and with the right support and the mindfulness piece of being able to recognize when it's happened, you can live and have the symptom and go, okay, I know what to do when it happens and I'll be okay. So to recap, the Groinal Syndrome is a symptom of having OCD. It basically feels like arousal on fire and it can manifest in all different areas of your life. Why? Because OCD just wants to keep you stuck. It wants to keep you living in that 1% of non-proof, so you will stay stuck in the cycle. Treatment is available. If you need help finding a therapist and referrals, please visit me at christyhodges.com or treatmentforocd.com, and I can help you start getting on this path of recovery. Thank you for tuning in. I am so glad. If you have questions about this, I know that you may be thinking, what? Feel free to message me or email me at ocd.chrissy@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to talk to you about what you've been through, or set up a peer support session where I use my lived experience to support and normalize what you're going through. Happy OCD Awareness Week. Thank you for tuning in to all my videos. You're not going to see me for a while. Don't worry. I'm not going to keep doing these every day. I know you're like, oh my goodness. But thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking out for OCD Awareness Week. And if you don't have the courage to do that yet, thank you just for tuning in, because that is courageous in itself. Keep fighting. OCD sucks, but there's treatment. You're not alone, and recovery is possible for anyone. Have a lovely evening, and I will see you here in a couple weeks. Bye.